The airlines have to be prepared to service the tickets that they sell.
Well, where did that money go, sir? Where did that money go? Now, a lot of that money came before you took office. I understand.
Here's where the money went. So here's where the money went. Here's where the money went. It went to keep people on the job and prevent people from being laid off and furloughed. So the way the bill was set up, it said you can't fire anybody. Now, here's what happened, though. While they complied with the bill in that technical sense, you still saw the airlines guide a lot of their pilots and experienced crews into early retirement. And so, that didn't violate the terms of all this taxpayer money that came to them. It said you can't fire people. Early retirement's a little different. But what these buyouts and retirements did was they left these airlines unprepared to service those routes. And now that's coming back to bite the entire system. So that is a real concern. And I think passengers are understandably asking, wait a minute, with all this taxpayer funding going over, why are we seeing the system not able to keep up with demand now that passengers are ready to fly again?
Shuffling masses awaiting in line, the flight is somewhere other sign of the time. Delays and retractions, complaints and outcry, you have to put up with if you wanna fly. The non-stop business like never before, got government handouts, the same old encore. Yet let go its pilots and personnel galore. The profit from the crisis, the hell hip and more. And then they blame it on you, you lazy bum. It's you don't wanna work anymore. Nada, nada.
Many people believe that generous government stimulus and unemployment benefits are really what's keeping so many workers on the sidelines, no matter where they live.
The quick answer people say is we're still providing too many benefits and too many people can sit at home and get a check.
From a consumer perspective, as American citizens, we have fewer rights with airlines than we do with virtually any other industry. And most people don't realize this. And it's been that way since the airline industry was deregulated in 1978. Something called federal preemption basically means that only the federal government can oversee the airlines. So you don't have the right, as you do with any other corporation, to file a lawsuit in state courts, to file class action suits in state courts, for state AGs to get involved, or for state legislatures to pass bills. So the airlines, when you boil it down, I've gotten a lot of criticism too. I know what you're saying, Brianna, where I'll post things on Twitter and people say, well, what do you expect Pete Buttigieg to do? He can't control the weather. What he can control is this industry. He is it. He is the only sheriff. If he doesn't do his job, it doesn't get done.
I'm sure people here in the audience experience this. A lot of disruption, thousands of flights cancelled, even more delayed. It was kind of a brutal summer for travel. What can be done about this? Do you think this issue will be sorted in time for the holidays?
I think it's going to get better by the holidays. We're really pressing the airlines to deliver better service. So many people have been delayed, been canceled. It's happened to me several times this summer. And the fact is they need to be ready to service the tickets that they're selling.
Many are losing hope that they'll make it home for the holidays.
I'm going to ask if they can rebook maybe with a different airline. I think I might just be stuck.
It's just really disappointed when you don't have anybody to even answer. They're running short on staff also. They don't have enough people.
Now, according to the tracking site Flight Aware, just over 3,400 flights in and out of the U.S. were canceled and 7,700 delayed today.
Southwest has been saying it's the weather causing these issues.
They keep saying it's the weather, but I'm like, is it the weather or do you just low staffed? Because I keep noticing like they don't have very many people on staff.
Shuffling masses are waiting in line. The flight is somewhere, other sign of the time. Delays and retractions, complaints and outcry. You have to put up with if you wanna fly. Instead of upgrading outdated equipment, they chose to buy back their own stock. Instead of investing in service for people, they chose to enlarge their CEO crowd. And then they blame it on the snow, which dared to fall in the winter, 'cause no one expected such a fall to be a hinder.
Over the last, 30, 40 plus years, not only was the industry deregulated, there was remarkable consolidation that took place. And that has created this almost oligopoly, in certain cases, monopoly kind of power that has led to incentives, or in this case, disincentives for companies like Southwest, which used to compete on price and used to compete on brand, but so much of that competition has withered away because there hasn't been that type of competition in years. So many of the slotting systems at airlines across airports across the country are controlled by airlines, so that there isn't that type of competition, which would force a Southwest or others to invest in these type of things. You look at what's happening in Europe. They have created a Bill of Rights where, if you're a consumer and your flight is delayed or gets canceled, they pay a hefty penalty. But at the same time, there's competition in that marketplace that has forced those airlines to actually try to help those customers in a way that they haven't in the United States. So we can blame the airlines themselves, and they deserve a lot of that blame. But we also have to, I think, look at the larger system. And as we start talking about Bill of Rights and all sorts of other things, you have to also take into consideration the competition perspective. Otherwise, what we're going to do is actually just raise prices across the board, because these costs are not going to just be borne by shareholders. They'll be borne by customers.
We're chopping down the thicket of unnecessary federal regulations by which government too often interferes in our personal lives and our personal business.
You have so few rights with airlines. I mean, just think about it. If you take the refund issue, for example, I said $10 billion was owed in refunds. Basically, airlines were behaving in a way where you had given them money and they weren't giving it back to you. They said, no, we're keeping it. Now, just stop a moment and think, is there any other industry where that could happen? Imagine buying something online from Amazon and then you're told, well, the product's not in stock and it won't be. But we're going to hold your money. We're not giving you a refund. I mean, you would take action, right? I mean, This is what you do. And you would, and a state AG, if they knew about that, they would take action, and even in some cases, state legislatures. But you certainly would have the right to sue. You can't do any of that with airlines. So we all sit around and we wait year after year for the Secretary of Transportation to act. And some of us, as I said, we had high hopes for Secretary Buttigieg, and we've been disappointed because he has not cracked down on this industry.
Shuffling masses awaiting in line, the flight is somewhere, a sign of the time. Delays and retractions, complaints and outcry. You have to put up with if you want to fly. An understaffed business like never before. Got government handouts, the same old encore. Yet let go its pilots and personnel galore. To profit from crisis, the hell hip and more. And then they blame it on you. You greedy schluck. 'Cause after decades of no care, you want your share.
That news.
It would be concerning, yeah. It's important for the people who are doing the work to be happy with what they're doing, and that comes with compensation.
It is unconscionable to me that we are standing here today in 2022 when we have been sounding the alarm along with our pilots union and other unions on property that our technology issues are absolutely going to lead us to this place. We have seen this before. This is not the first time.
Because people are always saying to me, is this a good fare? And I laugh. I'm like, I don't know. Is it?
So why is it, though, that someone in 14A is paying more or less than someone in 14B? Is it just when they book the ticket? I mean, is there any rhyme or reason to it?
There's a reason if you're an airline executive. There isn't a lot of reason for the rest of us who are more logical. I mean, what they're doing is they use these computers and these tools, these technological tools, to get as much as they can for every single seat individually, right? So there was a time where everybody in economy class paid the same rate, and we all paid the same thing, and we sat next to each other. Now they're saying, okay, well, this week we're going to offer it at this amount, and then next week we'll offer it this amount, and now we're not selling enough, so we'll lower it a little. Now we're selling too many, so we're going to raise it up a little. And you bought it through the airline, you bought it online, you bought it by phone, you bought it at a ticket counter, you bought it through Expedia, you bought it through Priceline. How'd you buy it? Travel agent, online, offline? There are so many algorithms into all this. And that also, by the way, affects how you're going to be treated when there's a delay or a cancellation. That's why those contracts are so vague. You look at the airline contracts and it says, they used to, in the old days, it was very clear. In the regulator, it would say, if your flight was canceled, you're entitled to this, a hotel, whatever. Everyone. That meant everyone. They didn't discriminate based on how much you paid. Now they say may because, you and I might be sitting right next to each other, and maybe you paid $300 more than me. And you're going to get a meal in a hotel, and I'm going to be sleeping in a hard plastic chair in the airport.
Shuffling masses awaiting in line. The flight is somewhere, a sign of the time. Delays and retractions, complaints and outcry. You have to put up with if you want to fly. Instead of upgrading outdated equipment, they chose to buy back their own style. Instead of investing in service of people, they chose to enlarge the CEO crowd. And then they blame it on you. 'Cause you don't know how hard it is to run a business. Yes, into the ground.
Significantly impacted their flight operations. Now the airline says the earliest they'll be able to rebook people is December 31st. But weather isn't the only blame for the flight chaos. A flight attendant union president says the technology flight attendants use to reschedule flights relies on a phone system that gets overloaded.
Obviously, the impact of Winter Storm Elliott created the issues, but the Southwest Airlines systems cannot recover because we have outdated technology.
The cancellations just compiled one after another to 100, to 150, to 1,000. With those cancellations, and as a result, we end up with flight crews and airplanes that are out of place.
But we need to make sure that the system is ready. So we're taking a number of steps. And if you've ever been mistreated by an airline, if they haven't given you the refund they owe you, if they haven't lived up to their customer service obligations, we will have your back. You can come to our department, file a complaint, and we will, on our website, we're making it clear right now what your rights are.
I just had somebody contact me yesterday about how Southwest Airlines was only going to reimburse them like $200 of the $700 that they had spent. Here's what they said. Southwest canceled 3 consecutive flights. I had to drive from Chicago to Dallas in a rental after Christmas. Rental cost was over $700. They are only refunding me $201 despite providing receipts. I'm absolutely furious. They destroyed his vacation. Now they're only reimbursing him, 2/7 or whatever of the cost. Wow. $500 out of pocket. How many people are going to keep fighting with the airline, after something like that? Most people are going to get pissed and then they're going to eat it. And that's not right. Yeah. Most people in this country, by the way, don't even have $500 in savings. So how many people out there did this happen to?
And the person who is supposed to have their back is Pete Buttigieg, and he has done next to nothing. They have a great line in here. They say, listen, this system was suffering from neglect, which resulted last week in that mass grounding. Buttigieg not directly culpable for that specific failure, but he is responsible for the personnel decisions about who was overseeing the situation. He's also responsible for setting the tone of the interactions between the Department of Transportation and an aviation industry that seemingly distributes dividends in a more timely manner than it transports Americans. He doesn't care about the job. He's bad at the job. He has done nothing to hold these airlines to account when they have failed over and over and over again and screwed over their passengers over and over and over again. Has to be the worst cabinet secretary or among the worst cabinet secretaries in the entire Biden administration. That's what happens when you use just like nepotism and cronyism to make these key personnel choices.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just think it's totally ridiculous. And we're not saying he's solely responsible, but when you oversee an agency and you oversee and have you have the biggest ground stop since 9/11 in modern American history, 2 weeks after the biggest airline meltdown in modern memory, and a year after the worst cancellation year in modern history on record. Something's eventually got to be your fault for not doing anything about it. And do you see the aggression and the necessity and the urgency that we should need from the man who is solely responsible for running it? I know the answer to that.
Last summer, there was ample public evidence that airlines were scheduling flights that they didn't have the ability to operate. And we know that there were crew shortages and staffing shortages. It was confirmed by the unions. It was confirmed in multiple media reports. Eventually, the truth started coming out. Well, think about that a moment. I mean, you used the word fraud. I mean, what we're talking about here is selling a product that is not available.
Hold position. American 106 Heavy, hold position. Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance. Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance.